He asked me to wear his ring to fool his family. But as he whispered, "I love you," in front of the crowd, I realized I wasn't pretending anymore. And I had no idea if he was. "I need you to be my fiancée for the weekend." I nearly choked on my iced latte, the cold liquid burning my throat as I stared at him in disbelief. I looked across the small, sun-drenched cafe table at Liam Vance, my best friend of 15 years, the man who knew my deepest secrets, and the only man I had secretly loved since we were 16. He wasn't joking. His blue eyes, usually full of mischief and light, were clouded with a desperate kind of stress that I had never seen before. "Liam, that's insane," I stammered, my heart already beginning a frantic, uneven rhythm against my ribs. "Why on earth would you need a fake fiancé? We're best friends, not actors in a romantic comedy." He sighed, running a restless hand through his dark, messy hair. "It's my sister's wedding. My parents. They're obsessed with the idea that I'm lonely and failing because I'm single. My ex, Sarah, is going to be there with her new husband. My mom told me if I don't bring someone serious, she's going to set me up with the senator's daughter on a blind date that very night. Maya, please, you're the only person I trust." "I'm your best friend, Liam. I don't know how to act like I'm in love with you," I whispered, which was a lie. I had been acting like I wasn't in love with him for a decade. "Exactly," he said, reaching across the table to cover my hand with his. His skin was warm, and the contact sent a jolt of pure electricity straight to my stomach. "We already know everything about each other. It'll be easy. No one will doubt us. Just 3 days. We act like we're in love, we survive the wedding, and then we go back to being us." I looked down at his hand on mine. That was the problem. I didn't want to go back to being just us. I wanted the us he was proposing, even if it was a lie. I knew that by saying yes, I was stepping into a minefield that would either lead to my greatest dream or a heartbreak that would end our friendship forever. "Okay," I breathed, the word feeling like a heavy weight and a feather all at once. "I'll do it." Liam's face lit up with a grin that could melt glaciers. "You're a lifesaver, Maya. Oh, and one more thing." He pulled a velvet box from his pocket and clicked it open. A massive diamond ring sparkling under the cafe lights. "If we're doing this, we're doing it right." The drive to his parents' massive estate was the longest 3 hours of my life. The diamond ring felt heavy on my finger, a constant, sparkling lie that seemed to pulse in sync with my frantic heartbeat. Liam was unusually quiet, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel, his eyes fixed on the winding road ahead. "Are you okay?" I asked softly, trying to break the suffocating silence. "Just thinking about the rules," he said, glancing at me briefly. "We need to be convincing, Maya. That means hand-holding, occasional kisses on the cheek. Maybe more if we're cornered. Are you comfortable with that?" Comfortable, I was terrified that he would hear my heart hammering through my chest. "I can handle it. We've hugged 1,000 times, Liam. It's not that different from what we usually do." "Right," he muttered, though he didn't sound convinced at all. When we pulled up to the massive Thorne Manor, his mother was already standing on the porch, her eyes narrowed with a sharp, high-society suspicion. As soon as we stepped out of the car, Liam did something he had never done in 15 years of friendship. He wrapped his arm firmly around my waist and pulled me flush against his side, his body heat radiating through my clothes. "Mom," Liam called out, his voice booming with a fake, effortless confidence. "I told you I had a big surprise. Maya and I. Well, it finally happened. We're engaged." His mother, a woman who looked like she breathed high society expectations, walked slowly down the steps. She looked at the ring, then at the way Liam was looking at me. For a second, his gaze didn't feel fake. It felt heavy, lingering on my lips for a beat too long, full of an intensity that made my knees weak. "Maya, the little girl who used to steal our apples," she asked, her voice skeptical but softening. "She's not a little girl anymore, Mom," Liam said, his voice dropping an octave into a low, protective rumble. He leaned down and pressed a slow, lingering kiss to my temple. The smell of his cologne, cedarwood and sea salt, swirled around me, making my head spin. "She's the woman I'm going to spend the rest of my life with." As his mother finally broke into a wide smile and hugged us, I felt a cold chill of guilt mixed with a dangerous thrill. The lie was perfect. But as Liam squeezed my waist, I realized I wasn't acting anymore. I was falling, and I was falling fast into a reality that wasn't supposed to exist. The first major hurdle arrived before dinner even began. "I've put you both in the West Wing suite," his mother announced with a knowing, mischievous wink. "Since you're engaged, I assume you don't need separate quarters anymore. It's the most romantic room in the house." My breath hitched. 1 bed, 3 nights, no escape. We walked into the suite, and it was undeniably beautiful and terrifying. There were fresh rose petals scattered on the silk duvet and a bottle of vintage champagne on ice. The bed was massive, but in my eyes, it looked like a tiny, isolated island we were both about to be stranded on. "I can sleep on the floor," Liam said immediately, shutting the door behind us and dropping his bags. The public version of Liam vanished, replaced by the nervous, slightly awkward friend I knew. "Don't be ridiculous," I said, trying to sound brave and sophisticated. "It's a king-sized bed, Liam. We can just stay on our own sides. We've had sleepovers before. It's no big deal." "We were 12 then, Maya," he pointed out, his eyes dark and unreadable. "Things are very different now. We aren't children anymore." "Only if we make them different," I whispered, avoiding his gaze. That evening at the rehearsal dinner, the pressure intensified. Liam's ex-girlfriend, Sarah, was there. She was stunning, draped in emerald silk and dripping with diamonds. She spent the entire night eyeing me from across the table, looking for a single crack in our perfect story. "So, Liam," Sarah purred, leaning over the table during the main course. "Maya, really, after all these years of you saying you were just friends, you suddenly realize she's the one. It seems a bit convenient for a wedding weekend, don't you think?" Liam didn't hesitate for even a second. He reached out, took my chin gently in his hand, and turned my face toward his. "It wasn't sudden, Sarah. It was a slow burn." I was just too stupid to realize that everything I ever wanted was standing right in front of me the whole time. I've loved her for years. Then he leaned in. This wasn't a fake kiss on the temple. It was a soft, firm, and undeniably real press of his lips against mine. It lasted only 3 seconds, but it felt like an eternity of fire and longing. My entire world narrowed down to the taste of him and the heat of his hand on my face. When he pulled back, his eyes were blown wide, and he looked just as shocked as I was by the electricity between us. Sarah went pale and walked away, but the damage was done. That kiss wasn't a lie to me. It was a spark that was about to burn my entire world down. The suite was silent that night, save for the rhythmic ticking of the antique clock on the mantel. We were both lying in the massive bed, as far apart as possible, staring up at the shadows on the ceiling. The kiss from the dinner hung in the air like a physical presence, making the space between us feel charged with lightning. "Maya," Liam's voice was a low, uncertain rumble in the dark. "Yeah. I'm sorry about tonight, about the kiss. I shouldn't have done that without asking you first. I just saw the way Sarah was looking at you, like you were some kind of prize to be questioned, and I wanted to protect you." "It's okay, Liam," I lied, my heart aching. "It worked, didn't it? She stopped asking questions. You're a good actor." "Is that all it was to you?" he asked suddenly. There was a sharp note in his voice I couldn't identify. Was it disappointment? Or was it pain? Just a good performance to make a point. I turned on my side, looking at his silhouette in the pale moonlight filtering through the curtains. "What else could it be, Liam? We're pretending for your family. We have a deal, remember." Liam turned to face me. In the shadows, he looked like a stranger, someone more dangerous, more alluring, and far more masculine than my best friend. He reached out, his fingers brushing a stray lock of hair away from my eyes. His touch was hesitant, almost fearful, as if he were touching something fragile. "Sometimes I forget where the acting ends and the reality begins," he whispered, his face inches from mine. "Do you ever feel like that, Maya? Like we've been playing a part for 15 years, and this fake weekend is the only time we've actually been honest with each other?" My heart stopped beating for a full second. "What are you saying, Liam?" He stared at me for a long time, his hand lingering on my cheek, his thumb tracing my lower lip. I could see the battle raging behind his eyes. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, to tell me something that would change everything, a loud crash came from the hallway, followed by the sound of his sister and her bridesmaids laughing loudly. The moment shattered instantly. Liam pulled his hand back as if he'd been burned by a hot stove. "Nothing. It's late. We should sleep. Big wedding tomorrow." He turned away from me, pulling the covers up, but I stayed awake for hours. My skin was still buzzing where he had touched me, and I realized with a sinking heart that he was hiding something. Or maybe he was just as terrified of the truth as I was. The sunlight streamed through the sheer curtains, mocking me with its brightness. I had barely slept, my mind a whirlpool of Liam's whispered words and the heat of his touch. Beside me, Liam was already gone. The indentation on his pillow was the only proof he had been there at all. I found him on the balcony, staring out at the rolling hills of the estate. He looked exhausted, his tuxedo shirt from the night before unbuttoned at the collar. When he heard me approach, he didn't turn around. "My parents are expecting us at the wedding brunch in 20 minutes, he said, his voice strained. "We need to keep the act up, Maya, especially today. Sarah's been whispering to my mother all morning." "Is that all you care about? The act?" I asked, my frustration boiling over. "Last night, you said." "Last night was a mistake," he interrupted, finally turning to face me. His eyes were cold, like shutters had been drawn over his soul. "I let the champagne and the stress get to me. We have a job to do, Maya. Let's just get through the ceremony." I felt as if he had slapped me. The slow burn he had described to Sarah felt like a brush fire that had just been doused with ice water. I nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Fine, let's go be the perfect couple." At the brunch, the pressure was suffocating. Every aunt and cousin wanted to see the ring, to hear the story of how the two best friends finally realized they were meant for each other. I smiled until my face ached, leaning into Liam whenever his mother looked our way. But every time he touched me, a hand on my shoulder, a guiding arm on my back, it felt different. The warmth was gone. It was clinical, professional. He was playing a part, and he was playing it too well. By the time the wedding ceremony began, I felt like a stranger in my own body, watching a version of myself fall in love with a man who was already pulling away. The church was filled with the scent of lilies and expensive perfume. Liam's sister looked radiant as she walked down the aisle, but I could barely focus on the ceremony. I was standing in the front pew next to Liam, our fingers entwined for the benefit of the front row cameras. As the priest spoke about the sanctity of marriage and the union of two souls, Liam's grip on my hand tightened. I looked up at him, and for a fleeting second, his mask cracked. He wasn't looking at the altar. He was looking at me with an expression of such profound longing that it took my breath away. "With this ring, I thee wed," the groom's voice echoed through the chapel. Liam leaned down, his lips brushing my ear. "Maya," he whispered, so low that only I could hear, "if this were real, if we weren't lying, what would you say?" My breath hitched. "I don't answer hypothetical questions, Liam." "I would say, finally," he murmured, his breath warm against my skin. Before I could respond, the congregation burst into applause. The ceremony was over. As we followed the bridal party out of the church, Sarah stepped into our path, her eyes gleaming with malice. "Such a moving ceremony," she sneered, her gaze dropping to our joined hands. "It almost makes me believe in true love. Too bad some people have to fake it to keep their parents happy." Liam didn't even blink. He pulled me closer, his arm around my shoulder like a shield. "Believe what you want, Sarah, but Maya knows exactly how I feel. Don't you, sweetheart?" He looked at me, waiting for me to play along. I managed a small, forced smile. "Perfectly, Liam." But as we walked toward the reception, I realized the truth. I didn't know how he felt. I only knew how I felt, and it was breaking me. The reception was a blur of champagne, loud music, and forced dancing. The Thorne estate had been transformed into a fairyland of fairy lights and white roses. Liam and I were the center of attention, the newly engaged couple who everyone wanted to toast. We were pushed onto the dance floor for a slow song. Liam's hands were on my waist, mine on his shoulders. We moved in silence, the world around us fatting into a smear of colors and noise. "You're a million miles away," Liam said, his forehead resting against mine. "I'm just tired, Liam. Tired of the lies, tired of the acting." "Just a few more hours," he promised. "Then we can leave. We'll go back to the city and things will go back to normal." "Normal?" I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You think we can just go back to being friends after this? After the kisses? After sharing a bed? After you told me you've been playing a part for 15 years? Liam stopped dancing, his hands gripping my waist tighter. "Maya, I didn't mean." "You meant it," I whispered, looking deep into his eyes. "You meant every word you said in the dark last night. Why are you so afraid of it, Liam? Why are you so afraid of us?" The music changed to a fast, upbeat tempo, and we were bumped by a group of laughing guests. Liam's expression hardened again. "This isn't the place, Maya. Let's just finish the night." He walked away to get a drink, leaving me standing alone in the middle of the dance floor. I felt a cold hand on my arm. It was Sarah. "I saw that look," she whispered, a cruel smile on her lips. "The Ice King is back, isn't he? He's using you, Maya, just like he used me. He doesn't love you. He loves the convenience of you. When this weekend is over, you'll be nothing but a memory he wants to forget." The confrontation with Sarah was the final straw. I retreated to the garden, needing to breathe, needing to be away from the suffocating luxury and the fake smiles. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and blooming jasmine. I sat on a stone bench by the fountain, the sound of the splashing water drowning out the distant music. I looked down at the diamond ring on my finger. It was beautiful, expensive, and utterly meaningless. I started to slide it off, my hands shaking. "Don't," a voice said from the shadows. Liam was standing by a rose bush, a glass of scotch in his hand. He looked disheveled, his tie hanging loose around his neck. "I can't do this anymore, Liam," I said, my voice breaking. "Take it back. I'm going home. I'll call an Uber." "It's 2 a.m, Maya. Don't be irrational." "Irrational? I've spent 10 years being the rational best friend. I've spent 10 years watching you date other women, listening to your problems, being your rock. And then you ask me to do this. You ask me to play at being the one thing I've always wanted to be. It's cruel, Liam. It's the cruelest thing anyone has ever done to me." Liam walked toward me, his pace slow and deliberate. He set his glass down on the stone wall. "You think you're the only one who's been hurting. You're the one who started this," I yelled, the tears finally flowing. "You're the one who asked for a fake fiancé." "Because I was a coward," he roared back, his composure finally shattering. "I asked for a fake fiancé because I was too terrified to ask for a real one. I thought if I could just pretend for a weekend, I could see what it felt like. I thought I could satisfy the hunger without risking the only thing that matters to me, our friendship." He grabbed my shoulders, his eyes wild and raw. "You want the truth, Maya. The truth is that every time I touched you this weekend, I wanted to scream. Every time I kissed you, I wanted to never stop. I'm not acting, Maya. I haven't been acting for a long, long time." The garden went silent, the only sound the distant thump of the bass from the reception. Liam's confession hung in the air, heavy and electric. My heart felt like it was going to burst through my ribs. "Then why?" I whispered, my hands gripping the lapels of his jacket. "Why were you so cold today? Why did you pull away?" "Because I saw the way you looked at me after that kiss at dinner," he said, his voice dropping to a pained whisper. "You looked terrified. You looked like you couldn't wait for the weekend to be over. I thought I was forcing this on you. I thought you were only doing it because you're the best friend in the world, and I was taking advantage of that." "You idiot," I laughed through my tears, hitting his chest lightly. "I wasn't terrified of the kiss. I was terrified because it was the first time in 10 years that I felt like you actually saw me. I was terrified that it was just a performance for you." Liam's hands moved from my shoulders to my face, his thumbs wiping away the tears. "Maya, look at me." I looked up into the blue eyes that had been my North Star since I was a child. They were soft now, filled with a vulnerability I had never seen before. "I love you," he said, the words clear and certain. "Not as a friend, not as a fiancé for a weekend. I love you with everything I am." I love you too, Liam. Always. It was always you. He leaned down, and this time there was no crowd to perform for. There were no ex-girlfriends to impress or parents to fool. It was just us. The kiss was deep, slow, and full of the years of unspoken words. It was the taste of home, the feeling of a missing puzzle piece finally clicking into place. As we pulled apart, gasping for air, Liam smiled, the real Liam grin. So, does this mean the wedding brunch tomorrow is going to be awkward? Only if you don't kiss me again right now, I teased. He didn't hesitate. The wedding was finally over, the music had faded, and the last of the guests had departed. The fake engagement was supposed to end at the manor gates, but as we stood in the moonlit garden, neither of us was moving toward the car. The silence was heavy, filled with the weight of everything that had happened over the last 3 days. Liam took my hands in his. The fake diamond ring was still on my finger, glittering mockingly in the moonlight. He reached out and gently, slowly, slid it off my hand. My heart sank into my stomach for a split second before I remembered our conversation by the fountain. Maya, he said, his voice thick with an emotion I couldn't name. I can't do this anymore, I'm done. I know, I said, a small, knowing smile playing on my lips. The weekend is over, we survived. We can go back to being friends now. I'll get my things. No, he snapped, his grip on my hands tightening until it almost hurt, his eyes dancing with a new kind of light. I can't go back to being just friends, Maya. I can't go back to pretending I don't want to wake up next to you every single morning. I can't go back to a life where you aren't mine in every way that matters. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a different box. This one was smaller, older, and worn at the edges, the velvet frayed from years of being touched. He opened it to reveal a simple, elegant gold band, his grandmother's ring. I bought the big diamond to fool my mother and Sarah, he whispered, his eyes searching mine with a sincerity that made my knees weak. But I've had this ring in my drawer for 3 years, Maya. I was just too afraid to lose my best friend to tell you the truth. I've been in love with you since the day we met in the 3rd grade. I couldn't speak. The world felt like it was spinning in slow motion, the scent of the garden roses suddenly overwhelming, the moonlight turning the moment into something from a dream. Maya, I don't want a fake fiancée for a weekend. I want a real wife for a lifetime. I want the girl who steals apples, knows my coffee order, and keeps all my secrets. I want you. I didn't answer with words. I couldn't. Instead, I threw my arms around his neck and kissed him with everything I had left in me. It was a kiss that contained 15 years of longing, 3 days of pretending, and a lifetime of forever. I love you, Liam, I sobbed against his chest as he held me tight, the world finally making sense. I've loved you since I was 16 years old. I never wanted to let go. He laughed, a sound of pure, unadulterated relief, and swung me around in the moonlight, our shadows dancing on the grass. We had started the weekend as a beautiful lie, but we were leaving it as the only truth that had ever mattered. The fake date was over, but our real story was only just beginning.